I'd like to welcome all of you here, and many of you that aren't here I'd like to welcome. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Tuli Ghost. I'm going to give my speech abruptly, right at the beginning of this event, by popular demand. And I'd like to welcome all of you. You've done a good deed, those of you that have paid. Those of you that haven't paid have done a good deed also.
You have to pay to leave.
Yeah, it's extra to leave. But I'm prepared now to read my speech, which is entitled, Tuli I Have Known. I first met Tuli in the form of a 12-inch vinyl disc. When I was a youth, my family would go on strange jaunts to the cross-county shopping center in Yonkers.
Can you play the piano
That's meant to convey the cross-county shopping center. It's a multimedia presentation. I grew up in a housing project in Inwood, the northernmost neighborhood on this island. And occasionally we would have exotic voyages to suburbia with my parents. And on one such trip at the Cross County Shopping Center, at the Sam Goodies, a fine record store with a dingy decor.
Cheap prices.
Cheap prices, good memory, and that's where I bought the Fugs' first album, Remaindered for $1.49. The year was 1968.
Good price.
I was 14. In a sense, I never recovered from that album with extraordinary songs like Boobs a Lot,
Yeah.
I'm Doing All Right, Nothing, the Swinburne Stomp. They were one of the few bands to take the poetry of Swinburne and transform it into rock music. That was the big mistake the Rolling Stones made, never having actually transposed Swinburne. It's difficult to explain the Fugs in today's Lady Gaga-drenched media culture. It was a band started in 1964 by two guys who knew nothing about music, Tuli and Ed Sanders. But they were both nearly great poets who intuitively understood historical strategy. The Fugs dreamed the 1960s into existence, though of course not single-handedly. They are a lesson in how to transform the avant-garde into pop culture without changing your wardrobe. I just learned from the internet that some of their albums sold 100,000 copies. And the picture of the Fugs walking down the street wearing dresses in Life magazine was a breakthrough for American photography. I must mention Tuli's voice. Has anyone ever publicly honored his throaty, near baritone? Jewish Brooklyn may be heard in it. Also loneliness, wit, exaltation, democracy. Walt Whitman's wrinkles are visible in Tuli's songs. Once I walked into the basement of the Café Wa. I didn't have enough money to pay, so I just glimpsed the room for 10 seconds. An incandescent band propulsively singing. Maybe I was seeing the Fugs. Such are the pleasures of 15-year-olds. I have met few famous people. I won't list them because I'm about to insult them, except I will mention the Grateful Dead. Anyway, of all the famous people I've met, the only one who was nicer than I imagined was Tuli Kupferberg. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Fame is a caricature, and Tuli was 1,200 times more beneficent than his caricature. He wore an air of bedraggled forgiveness. He was that rarest of beings, a humanitarian who actually liked people. I remember one joke Tuli told me, which takes place during a pogrom. Pogrom, I'm translating for you, Goyim, is a brutal attack on a Jewish community in Tsarist Russia. A tall, blonde, powerfully built Cossack is raping a helpless, elderly Jewish woman. Suddenly a young man steps up and shouts, "Unhand that woman! I will not have you despoiling my saintly grandmother." At this point, the woman looks up to him and says, "Look, Yankel, a pogrom is a pogrom."
Unbelievable.
That's funny! Where's Tuli when we need him?
Oh, right, I was going to quote, which I have. Tuli doesn't like me to tell you this, but I have to quote now, I'm sorry to say, the poem Howl, in which Tuli Kupferberg is mentioned among the list of wild maniacs who jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge. This actually happened, and walked away unknown and forgotten into the ghostly days of Chinatown soup alleyways and fire trucks. Not even one free beer. I belong to a group of hapless, sociable, but angry writers called the Unbearables. For many years, we had readings every September on the Brooklyn Bridge. Once Tuli attended, and suddenly I realized this is the bridge he jumped off in the poem Howl. I went up to him and said, "Hey, this is your bridge." Tuli smiled and replied, "It was a different bridge and a different me." And according to Wikipedia, it was the Manhattan Bridge. Once Tuli explained to me how to write a song. If you say the words to a lyric out loud, a tune will suggest itself, he said. Like most of his advice, it was simple and true. Yogis say, "As you think, so shall ye become." I have honored Tuli Kupferberg so long that I now resemble him. Every so often, someone comes up to me on the street, shyly asking, "Tuli?" Jesus Christ, he's 30 years older than me, I inwardly think. In fact, now that I am completely white-headed, I look 30 years older than him, even now that he's dead. I'm not going to speculate on Tuli's hair coloring regime. Recently, I attended a reading by two Italian translators at the McNally Jackson bookshop. Afterwards, I had to pee, so I went to the bathroom, only to discover a device on the door requiring the insertion of a quarter. Pay toilets have returned to New York City. Immediately, I remembered Tuli's brilliant blues song attacking the original pay toilets of the 60s. On the internet, I discovered that the title is Kaka Raka. And the subtitle, Pay Toilet Blues. Unlike essentially every other song on earth, the lyrics are unavailable, but as I recall, the narrator of the ditty only had 3 cents, and the toilet cost a nickel. The culminating line of the song was, "You don't get a shit for just 3 cents." In today's turbocharged world, The lyric should be adjusted to 23 cents. The battle against paid toilets was one of many successful struggles Tuli waged. The Vietnam War ended. Hippies became accepted and beloved in America. Circumcision came to be widely questioned. Tuli was politically successful because he had no desire to be successful. He propagated his mercurial philosophy the way a thrush warbles her songs, from an instinct for decoration. And while I was writing this, I'm staying at my parents' house in Brooklyn. My mother is the same age, born the same year as Tuli. And I found a Chinese fortune from a fortune cookie in the sink while doing the dishes last night, which said, "If you want to be a force in society, be yourself." That's God, the non-existent God, trying to tell me what to say about Tuli. Tuli was born the same year as my mother in 1923. And in the eyes of Lord Shiva, he was my mother. I vividly remember the last time I saw Tuli. I ran into him on Spring Street in front of Steve Jalachinsky and Yuko's house. Steve introduced Tuli to me, and he paused and said, "I know you." "Yes, you do," I admitted. "That's the great thing about having Alzheimer's," Tuli reported. "You keep meeting new people." For some reason, Tuli, later in the conversation, prophesied about humanity's future. "The good news is that capitalism will crumble," he said. "The bad news is that it will take another 7,000 years." Tuli was one of those deeply spiritual people who hate religion and was a militant atheist, like my mother, actually. Tuli once told me, "You know, Judaism is a barbaric religion because on the Sabbath, your animals are allowed to rest, but not your slaves." I have failed in this oration to properly honor Tuli Kupferberg.